Hey everyone, I'm Kunal Bajwa.
And I'm Lance Jordan.
We are two nerds who decided to start a podcast in 2020 due to the pandemic. No topic is necessarily off the table, and we'd like you to join us in hearing our thoughts on various topics, ranging from anime to Zeppelins. We have it all. Here we go.
We're recording.
That's right. Woohoo! Yeah.
My tea.
Get the fuck out of here. He's making me laugh because he hated Captain Planet. And
there's so many people that hated Captain Planet.
Aside from you, I know like one. And that includes
That's
you.
impossible. No one loved Captain Planet.
I mean, he was a hero. And he brought pollution down to zero.
So was Smokey the Bear.
Okay, fair enough.
He was a hero too. He might actually done more than Captain Planet. Look at the condition of our planet. What has he done? What has he really done?
What are we in a courtroom? Jeez.
What has he really done?
I'm sorry about the deposition earlier. Jeez, man.
We're going hard.
We are
hard
using...
and fast.
Stop making me laugh, man. We're never going to get anything done.
Oh, we're getting to that.
Oh, shit, there's an owl on your... That matches up with today's episode.
The themes everywhere.
What is that?
It's a owl tattoo.
I didn't know you like owls.
I do like owls.
Well, it fits in perfectly with today's episode. I'll say that.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Welcome to another episode. If we're not, well, we're going to keep the first part. I don't know.
We'll see.
We'll get to it.
This is what happens when you have us in quarantine.
Yeah.
We just start talking.
My tea. So
leave the brown dude out of this. All right, he hasn't done anything to you aside from giving you a heart.
I mean, he was. I guess if I chose a favorite character, I guess my tea would be it.
Mine would probably be Wheeler. He was just
Wheeler.
He had a New York accent, and
he was like the
and
traditional.
He was pyro. He loved burning.
Yeah, because that's what Captain Planet needs: access to fire. Okay,
I mean he's a hero.
Not all heroes use fire. That's a
Tell
very destructive.
Tell that to
power.
Ben 10, his son.
I mean, Pyro was a villain.
That's right, it's Static Shock. Yeah.
No, not a Static. In the X-Men.
Oh, that's
and
right.
then that was Hot Streak.
That was Hot Streak. That's
was
right.
the villain.
He always wore.
Static Shock.
You could see his underwear every goddamn episode.
Yeah,
and I'm like,
that was so. The white guy at the black school who was sagging his pants.
Right. I'm like, what are you doing? Like, I didn't know what that stood for back then, but I'm like, now I'm like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
It made no sense. To me, it made no sense.
So let's get into some shout outs.
Let's do it.
Let's focus.
Amitha, happy birthday. It's our producer.
Happy birthday.
Fantastic job for us in the past 1, 2, 3.
We're at 6
4,
episodes.
4 months.
Oh.
For the past 4. Well, yeah, for the past 6 episodes. Yeah. She's kick ass. Amitha Audio. Check her out.
Yeah, and go follow
her. Do all the things that friends do.
Oh, I thought you said you fired her.
No,
like, wow.
Why would I do that? That would destroy this podcast. No,
terrible birthday wish. You get fired. Like, how will this get edited now?
I play hard.
I know.
We're never gonna get this episode done.
All right, we're getting there. All right. I would like to also give a shout out to my friend Ahmad Comer. He is launching his own clothing line. He's venturing out into that space.
Good for him.
So a shout out to him. I hope it goes well. I will be at his place soon to collect my free hoodie.
Hell yeah.
I'm saying it's free because that's what I hope it is.
I do want to say your friend always comments on our stuff and likes it, so I appreciate that.
Yeah, he's given us ideas for future topics, and
I'd love to have him on.
Yeah, I mean,
that's cool with you.
Yeah, absolutely. We can definitely talk about this new venture that he's getting into. It's very exciting.
True that.
We started it kind of light.
Yeah, we did, because it's been a pretty rough week for everybody across the board.
Yeah,
across the goddamn board. We lost our king.
Yeah.
We lost our king. We lost Wakanda's leader. T'Challa is with us no more. He's on the ancestral plane. Chadwick Boseman passed away from colon cancer.
Yeah. Colon cancer.
Completely caught everyone off guard. In fact, we were together when we found out. I was doing dishes. Believe it or not, Lance and I hang out outside of the podcast too.
Right.
When he's not annoyed with me. And
and the least annoying person I know.
Oh, thanks, brother. Appreciate that. But no, so like getting back to the heat of the matter, it's like, for me, it's always been interesting because other minority figures, including myself, I'm not a figure necessarily, but other minorities, whenever they see anything in Black culture, it's always something that's super accepted. It's super appreciated because whenever we want to look towards any kinds of thing that was cool, African American community always did it first. And we always respect that. And we, at least in the people that I know, we loved Black Panther. We loved seeing person of color, to break that kind of barrier. And it was only made within the past 3 years.
Yeah.
And so that was just horrible because I feel he had so much left to share.
Absolutely.
Even though he only did I don't know how many movies he did, but he did a number of movies and had an incredible amount of talent. My instructor actually met him. I don't know if I told you this. He met him at the training camp where he learned to fight for Black Panther.
Nice.
He worked with him a couple times, barely too. He's actually good, not just for the show. He's actually really good. According to him. So that kind of sucks.
Yeah, man. It's never easy when these kind of figures in our lives pass away. You know, I think about Kobe earlier this year.
This year has been terrible.
It's been a very terrible year. You know, you kind of think about the lasting impression they had. I won't sit here and say, you know, I've seen every Chadwick Boseman movie.
I haven't either.
I think, you know, my first introduction, I knew about the 42 movie about Jackie Robinson, but I won't pretend like, you know, I really knew who that was. And I think Captain America Civil War, when they introduced the Black Panther, was like my first introduction to Chadwick Boseman and his work. And he did great with the Black Panther. He made it this Black event. You know, I remember when that movie came out, for me, already being a comic book nerd, I was just excited for a comic book movie. But what he did to get the majority of African Americans out to go see this movie and make this like a huge event, I think, and I could be wrong now with Endgame and Infinity War that came out, but for that short while, it broke records at Marvel for being, you know, a top-selling movie, because it was able to draw those crowds out. Outside of, you know, Marvel, 21 Bridges was a good movie that I enjoyed.
I need to watch that. It looks really good.
Very surprising, because it's something, when you look at it, you'll be like, this may be like a B-level action movie.
It kind of felt like that.
Yeah. But
I was concerned about that.
It was enjoyable. You know, recently I also looked at The Five Bloods that is on Netflix and played a very unique character in that movie as well. Also, too, to, you know, go through that for, 4 years and not say a word and, you know.
Keep it on lockdown.
Yeah, especially
honestly,
in this.
That is the most, like, his posse didn't say anything.
His crew didn't say anything. Yeah. I guess he, you know, never said anything to Marvel.
And I get it, because the moment he would have, it would have just been a countdown to his death. Yeah. And I'm like, I get that. I respect the fact that he did all that privacy. I really do.
Yeah. I think I just want to say rest in peace to him, and, you know, a heartfelt sorry to his family for their loss. Never easy to lose a family member, especially to cancer. One thing I was seeing going around on social media was, you know, what's next for the Black Panther franchise. And I guess for me, it's a little bit too soon to really say.
Especially with COVID, we don't know how it's going to work.
Yeah. Just to speculate, though, I know I saw a lot of people talking about how Shuri becomes.
I'd be up for it.
I would be up for it, too, but I think my thing is there's still some more story to tell with the Black Panther as T'Challa. I'm not saying recast him like within 2 years, especially with COVID. These things take time, but I think there might be a graceful way to do it, to tell the stories. But no, you're right. I'd be down for a Shuri as the Black Panther. And
yeah, she was already a great character.
Yeah, in the movie, I think she was one of my favorite characters that 100%. Came out of that movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know how big of a role she had in the comics, but she definitely blossomed in the movie.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
think even in the comics she turns into a villain. So
I believe it. That's pretty common.
yeah,
They throw the siblings as to pit them against each other. That's not anything new. Yeah, rest in peace, Chadwick. Yeah, we'll miss you. We already do.
Yeah, so it's, let's tee this situation up
Oh
and lighten it up.
You had to say that, didn't you?
My tea. I think I'm saying it right. Correct me if I'm not.
You clearly have the heart. I'll say that.
I have the heart.
Oh my god.
Captain Planet. I would never show up, by the way. Would never.
It's like, hey, Lance, we're doing an episode in Captain Planet. He's like, all right, Canal, I'll see you next year.
We're not forming him. We don't need him.
He's like, the hobby guys are done. Yeah, okay, cool. So today's episode was something that we actually planned to do. And it was kind of a really cool happenstance that it took place because the Gotham Knights trailer just came out of nowhere. DC fandom, but I didn't expect any of Court of Owls comics. I knew that they were going to bring out stuff. Like they've been, they were talking about it, but like I had no idea they were going to bring out Court of Owls because I haven't heard about them for a while.
Yeah.
Lance and I had already read the comic and we were already planning on doing episodes. That makes this episode extra special for me, and I'm guessing for you too.
Yeah, I mean, the irony in it being that, we planned this outside of, the Gotham Knights announcement.
They're just on our level, apparently.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're just that cool.
Let's start off with, but what was your impressions of Gotham Knight? From what you've seen in the trailer, maybe even... How accurate do you think they're going to be
to the
court? Yeah.
So first off, I was really glad because this kind of picks up right where Arkham Knight left off with the last video game that they made for Batman, which was good and bad. There were things about it I liked, that we finally got a closing of the Arkham story because it was a great storyline and they did a great job with it, but it needed to be wrapped up. And the cons about that game, I'll just say very briefly, like, too much car usage, too much Riddler, and the way they ended it was ambiguous, but I guess that's the whole point. And they don't really say what happens, and he does the Nightfall protocol, so he blows up Wayne Manor, and it's right where I don't think it's going to be a direct successor. They've made that point, but essentially it's a spiritual successor,
right?
Where like the same thing happens. They have different voice actors.
Okay.
That wasn't Kevin Conroy. That was some other dude that I don't know.
Some other dude.
It was something, some dude. Mr. Dude is, definitely did a good job. Well, anyhow, so he initiates the Nightfall protocol and he's like, I'm dead. I'm sorry. Well, actually, he doesn't even say that. He just basically is like, I need you guys to take care of Gotham. After they show all the gameplay and the characters that you will play as, so Nightwing, Red Hood, Tim Drake, Barbara Gordon, so she's no longer in the wheelchair. Either she had the surgery at this point or it didn't happen. One of the two. They got some cool hand-to-hand combat that they got, which is interesting because Barbara is carrying around a tonfa that's connected to a nunchuck, it looks like. I'm down for it. I don't know how it's going to work in real-life combat, but in the video game, it's totally cool. My favorite is Screamador from the DC Universe, aside from Arrow is there, or the Green Arrow's there, which is Nightwing, and he's back. Yeah. Honestly, he's pretty much going to be the de facto leader for the game, in my opinion.
Think so?
I think so, because he's the oldest Robin. Everyone loves him. He led the Titans for years. I could do a whole episode just on Nightwing. Yeah. About how much I respect him and find him interesting and, how he does everything. I hope they don't do one thing, though.
What is it? Because I think I
think you probably know. I hope that they don't. If they were going to make it a really good game, they would not fake Batman's death.
Yes. Yeah. You're right on the same page as me.
I figured as much because, like, if you're going to do it strong. Because if he's dead, fine. Keep him dead. It's time for us to see other characters. Yeah. As much as I love even the trailer for, like, the new Batman movie, which is coming out. When I heard Edward Cullen might play Batman, I was actually excited. I could see him pull it off. And clearly, the fan reaction from the trailer, everyone loves him so far. At least from what I've heard. But like the thing is, I'm tired of Batman.
Yeah.
We've had 10 movies of him. In my entire my lifetime, we've had 10 movies of him. It's time to move on. It's time to do something new. Even if we're doing the old thing really well, it's time to do something new. And so yeah, if they're going to do that, they should keep him dead. After the rest of the trailer goes on, after they show the rest of them. Also, Jason Todd has this interesting scar. They're going that route. I remember him getting like the branding of the J on his face.
From the previous game.
Right, but I never heard of the scar happening. I don't remember that.
I think that was like a
later on thing.
Like a liberty they took, or maybe it's something from the
it's fine.
original comics, because I know they say the dyed hair is something directly taken from his older character.
Because he's actually blonde haired, I think, originally. He doesn't have black hair or something like that.
I think it's like brown with the white streak in it, because it's the effect of the Lazarus pit.
Okay, yeah.
Being revived. So
I knew he wasn't born with black hair.
Yeah.
I know that.
He didn't look like a Bruce Wayne.
Pretty much. Look alike, essentially.
Yeah.
But yeah, anyhow, so unless I'm forgetting anything, at the end of the trailer, they play the lullaby.
Oh, the nursery rhyme?
The nursery rhyme.
I knew you had it. I knew you were going to read it for us today.
That's why I print stuff out.
That's killing trees. That's not very Captainplanet.
I print it back and forth, okay? I recycle everything. I'm a hero. Leave me alone, Lance. You're supposed to support me. We're getting way off track. Okay. All right, so they have a nursery rhyme that's known for the Court of Owls. Is beware the Court of Owls that watches all of the time, ruling Gotham from a shadowed perch behind granite and lime. They watch you at your heart. They watch you in your bed. Speak not a whispered word of them, or they'll send Talon for your head. And right as they say Talon for your head, there's a dude wearing an owl suit who jumps at you and claws the screen.
Yeah.
And immediately I was like, oh, yeah, they're bringing the Court of Owls.
Geeked out for it.
I was so excited.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I see we got an owl fan here.
I mean, of the story, not necessarily of the Society of Owls.
Okay.
I have a whole spiel on them.
Okay, we'll get there. Yeah. We'll get there. But yeah, I think the Court of Owls, if I give a general take of them, they're very interesting in that
they are. They have a lot of lore building for Gotham.
A lot of lore within Gotham, and you have a character, Bruce Wayne, Batman, who is basically like the son, the protector of Gotham, who, I mean, at this point, should know every inch, nick and cranny of Gotham.
Yeah.
So, for him to know the nursery rhyme.
And never bring it up before.
Yeah. And then that was always weird to me. And it's kind of one of those things in comics that I actually don't like. But I think if we're judging the Court of the Owl story, they do it well. If we're talking solely the story, it's a great story.
Oh,
and I think
completely. Yeah.
Maybe one of the better comic stories that came out of like this recent year. Yeah.
The recent New 52, rather.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I hate how comics sometimes will introduce these forces into like a character's backstory that weren't there before or after you already established a story. But I think the Court of Owls does that well. Especially
by bringing in old memories of Alfred's dad.
Yeah.
At least in the comic. Alfred's dad, and then obviously Bruce's parents.
Even Dick Grayson's.
Yeah, we'll get to that.
Yeah. So it makes all these things connected. I think it does it well. For example, I saw the older Batman movie where they were messing with the story a bit and were saying that the Joker, like the very first Batman movie, like the Joker killed Bruce's parents. Yeah,
it kind of goes forth in three things. Joker, Joe Chill, or somebody else kills Batman's parents. They change that story all the time.
Right.
Yeah.
But to see them do this well is very, very good. So the Court of the Owls in general are an assassin group that was back during colonial times. We, like, even in the comics, we see Jonah Hex, who's a older hero.
Yeah.
Go head to head with them.
The Wayne family's around even at that time.
Yeah.
Alistar Wayne or Alvin Wayne?
Yeah, Alistair or Alan. We're not.
Something with an A. Go read the comic.
Exactly.
The Court of Owls has been around since the dawn of Gotham. And really, you can't look at this comic without seeing parallels to today's social progress movements. So essentially, they are systemic white racism. In a lot of ways.
In the shadows.
Yes, very much so. In fact, I saw that a lot as I was preparing for today's episode.
So they're this elite society because they control basically everything in Gotham. So nothing moves in Gotham without them knowing.
Without them having some sort of knowledge or control over. And they kind of keep in the shadows and meet up every once in a while. Just to, status check and everything. Keeping with colonial ties, everything in the Western world traces back to Greece. So the Court of Owls, they kind of tie it down to an Athenian symbol. What's weird is that owls are often regarded in our society as being like smart. They're not that smart. I was checking, actually, I have a buddy who's an avid birder and an ornithologist and a biologist. Like, he was the best person to talk to. He's like, they're descended from Tyrannosaurus raptors, and they have incredibly developed sensory skills, being descended from great killing machines. So there's really not a whole lot else going on in their brain, which is kind of weird that it's associated with being wise and powerful. I think more on the powerful side rather than the wise side. Athena's relation to owls in the first place is kind of a mystery. It is possibly a reference to Minoan gods who were associated with birds, and they predate the Greeks by thousands of years. The only working theory that kind of makes any sense in terms of wisdom for owls or being able to see everything is literally just that, having nocturnal vision in darkness. So you can symbolically see the wisdom in the darkness. So you see the light, you can navigate that way. They say in the comic, one of my favorite parts, they talk about how when the Wayne brothers buy Wayne Manor, they didn't move in right away because they had a bat infestation. So they sent its natural predator, the owls.
Right.
The owls basically decimate them, kill them out. Eventually, it's paralleled with him getting the shit kicked out of him, Bruce Wayne, by the Talons. And he's like, then they came back with a vengeance, and then he just pops out and just starts winning really well in the fight. That was one of my favorite parts because of how they just drew it in the comic. Yeah. I just like that part there. So, ornithology fact or birding fact, they are a natural predator to bats, owls, but they are more into rodents. They're like, oh, if bats are on the menu, they'll maybe have it. Yeah. It also depends on the species of owls and stuff like that. So when they say that they're predators or natural predators, I'm like, it's right, but it's not their main source of calories. So the more you know.
The more you know. And no one's half the battle. Captain Planet.
That's gonna be in our title. But
what, my tea?
Something in that is gonna be in our title.
The Court of My Tea.
The Court of My Tea. So they take that as their moniker, as their symbol, and that is one way that they use to enforce their image on there. So they eventually breed these assassins, which we'll delve into a little later.
The Talons.
Right, they're called the Talons. On their mercury-tipped blades, which create more aerodynamicness on their throwing blades, they have a symbol of an owl. So it's even an intimidation factor to keep people in check. So that's a canal background on Court of Owls and how they get to be where they are.
Yeah. So I guess we go into, who are the main players in this court, if you will. We really don't know a lot, at least in these initial comics, who the grandmasters are, who the judges are, who run the things, but we get to know the Talons a bit. Yes. So we get to know about Lincoln Marsh, if you want to start with him.
So Bruce is undertaking a campaign to better Gotham, as he pretty much does with every Batman story.
Yeah, I mean,
and Gotham still stays the same, right? Because concussions only help the city so much. So they can, And anyhow,
that might be the crutch of the story, is how weak that is, because it's kind of like a fallback in a way. You know what I mean?
In terms of how he fails all the time?
Not how he fails, but I feel like, that's kind of a generic way to start something for an event.
It's a bit unoriginal, but it's essentially the only angle that Bruce Wayne does all the time that's of note.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so he starts an undertaking that he, quote unquote, is a dream away. But at the same time, he's only doing this also to lay out other bat caves around the city. Yeah. So he clearly loves fascism. As he says himself, it simplifies things. And he's even developed a contact lens that hooks up to his bat computer. So he's just
he's like a walking bat computer.
He's a walking judge, jury, and crippling person, not executioner.
A crippling person.
Well, I mean, yeah, he even says very clearly in the beginning of this comic, it's like, I am the only legend this city needs. I am Gotham. Which I'm like, oh, okay. It's not like anybody else lives here or anything, but it's cool. Yeah. So with the new initiative, the owls start waking up and essentially start sending out talons and attacking people. And and Lincoln March is someone who is kind of this new figure that gives this weird vibe, but he also like tries to say like, I'm totally with you. I'm totally here to help.
It's like that cliche, well, not cliche, but it's like a bad guy who shows up who you can kind of pick him out that he's a bad guy, but he's so introduced as such a a good guy, a helping figure. He's a CEO of his own company.
And as you're first seeing him, something about him strikes you. You'll find out why later. We'll get into that. But it definitely is like, even when I was the first time I was ever reading it, I'm like, why am I so not uncomfortable, but like, why is my bat radar going off the chain about this guy? I don't know why.
Spidey sense.
I wasn't gonna say Spidey sense because this is DC and I was keeping it in house.
Keeping it in house.
But I was about to say Spider sense.
My Spidey senses.
So that's basically how the story starts. Yeah.
So that leads to the Talons like attacking
key figures throughout the city.
And then they leave a message even
Bruce
saying
Wayne's
that
life.
Bruce Wayne, that Bruce Wayne is going to die.
And they specifically kill someone in a slow way, too. They actually hit all the organs, or the areas around the organ. They eventually find a body in this apartment. So after they find him, they see that he's pinned to the wall with a bunch of these mercury knives that have owl symbols on them. And your classic Harvey Bullock is there, too. They realize that the Talon wanted this person to suffer. So because he had purposely avoided vital organ spots. They eventually find out that this guy has a bunch of scarring on a calcification on his ribs and hands, and also a bunch of cuts on his scars, but not mental illness scars. They're like sword-based saber scars. And so it's typically scars that you will find from sparring. If you spar like that, you're an idiot, in my opinion. But he also has a lot of the calcification in the ribs shows that he was training boxers. So this guy was apparently killed by someone who is scarier than him. It's because he was apparently building soldiers in the process of it. So, and as Batman apparently smells something, he lights the wall and it says, Bruce Wayne is going to die. Yeah,
very ominous.
Very much.
This is where he does his detective skills and finds out there's a DNA match with Dick Grayson, and I don't know if it really leads to any distrust because
it doesn't lead to distrust. He just is like, I have to protect Dick and make sure that the cops don't find us because he's like, something's wrong. I think he does it also, one, to protect him, and two, to be like, I need to find out what's exactly going on, because if Dick is doing this, potentially if he has gone quote unquote rogue, I need to be the one that takes him down. Right. Because I trained him.
Yeah, nobody's going to take him down.
Yeah, no one's going to be able to. He's way too good. And pretty much his de facto son. Or first son, at least. Yeah. Yeah.
With the Talons, though, what I think of them, when I was first reading through this comic years ago, they're like a more beefed up version of the League of Assassins in a way.
Yeah, because they can't really, to be fair, the League of Assassins, they don't die if they lose the Lazarus Pits. They still have their minds. Yeah. At least somewhat.
But with the League, their warriors are they're still regular humans. So they're Olympic athletes. Batman. Yeah. So Batman kicks their ass. Right. And if he accidentally kills one, they're dead until someone drops them into the pit. Right. With these Talons, though.
So they might come back a little insane, but they're still in control of what they do to a certain extent. Yeah. These Talons are just assassins that they're born and bred.
Born and bred, yeah. And that serum that they're, which they call the...
Electium, I think. Yeah. Specifically, it's something that is put in your molar and it secretes a liquid that goes throughout on the cellular level. You have an ultimate healing factor. He's breaking people's arms the other ways, and then all of a sudden you just see pop, and then they get back and fight. The only way to keep them down is to keep them cold. That's the only way. And it's actually a pretty cool part. So this actually isn't just one comic book. There's 3 or 4 that cover them. So like there's Volume 1, Volume 2, and then the Night of Owls, which takes place and shows you like when the Talons are sent to kill out like key public figures in Gotham.
And like the other members of the Bat family.
Just like in Gotham Knights, everybody teams up and was like, we need you guys to protect all these key figures that are still alive, because some of them have died by the time Alfred gives his message. There's a really cool line in here is like when they infiltrate Wayne Manor, because they infiltrate Wayne Manor not knowing that that's Batman, and he's like, oh good, I don't have to hold back anymore, so he starts like legitimately killing them temporarily, and then they heal and he kills them again. So just this epic like 10-page fight of just Bruce Wayne not holding back, something we never see.
Right.
Yeah. And then after that calms down and everything, so Nightwing shows up to him and he's talking to him, and this is after Bruce has been tortured by the Court of Owls in like a maze for a week. Basically been driven mad and found his way out. Yeah,
which is like one of the best scenes, like one of the memorable moments from the comic.
And it mirrors the time when he's a child too, being stuck in that place for a week.
Without food. Yep. And the only thing he has is this water that's been like drugged with like scarecrow like hallucinogen, making him see like crazy ass shit. It's actually one of the moments where you see Batman at his most vulnerable, which at least recently you don't see that a lot. I know in the past we've had the Killing Joke and like what the Joker did to Jason Todd, and even Bane breaking Batman's back in the day. Yeah. But then like recently Batman kind of became like this invincible figure.
Yeah, and they do a good job of showing like they can affect him at his core. And that I like that too.
Yeah, and I like it that Batman, I mean, going back to like the beginning, like this was something that Batman just shrugged off as a myth, which in his world, I don't know why he would do that, because
it's very unlike him to do that.
I mean, like you have Superman flying around, you have magic, but
a crazy quiet society that's rich and powerful, that doesn't happen.
Right. Like the Illuminati essentially doesn't exist when you fought a League of Assassins. You know, whatever Batman wants to do.
I mean, he's human. Whether or not he denies it, he's human and he makes mistakes. So anyhow, after he gets tortured and gets out, he's doing a bunch of research, and Dick is getting frustrated with him because he's been like not talking to them. He's very standoffish. Everything has to be done his way. He's closed off his emotions. Classic Bruce Wayne / Batman tactics. And then all of a sudden he backhands Dick Grayson in the face to the point like so badly that his molar comes out. And he's like, Dick, they were going to make you a Talon. He picks up his molar and you see the same symbol that he found in the other Talons. So Dick Grayson was already on the path to become one of the Court of Owls assassins. What I like about Nightwing is that he's like, okay, fine, maybe they did, but that still doesn't change my fate. You know, I am in charge of my own fate. I get to do what I want to do. We are who we choose to be, and neither you or the Owls are this city and control fate, which I thought was really cool. And the reason that he was selected as a Talon is because, going again back to Greek society, they would often recruit people who were in charge of a circus, and the circus dates back to Greek times. Now, granted, other cultures had equivalent of circus, kind of an apparatus for that, but this is where they would get most of their talent from. Yeah. In fact, the Talon they find is
William Cobb.
Right.
His great grandfather?
I think it's his great grandfather.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he was in Haley's circus.
Right.
And was a talented knife thrower.
Mm-hmm. And there's a whole sub-story about him.
Oh, yeah.
Which is really, really well done, honestly.
Mm-hmm. One of the better stories that comes out of the Night of the Owls comic, just kind of following his history, you know, what led him to joining the court, or taken by the court, if you will.
Yeah.
Very interesting fight where Nightwing, you know.
That was one of my favorite parts.
Yeah.
Yeah. He takes one of the Talons, I think he's fighting his grandfather, his great-grandfather. And he's like, oh, I could see you're kind of okay. He's just kind of like tearing him down the whole time. In the animated movie, they briefly mentioned that he could have been a great Talon, which I'm like, okay, I see what they're doing here. Yeah. Like, which kind of sucks, because that was one of the best parts of the comic, that, you know, he was going to be a Talon potentially.
Yeah, and I think even, spoilers, I guess, in future comics, he's like infiltrating I think they're called something else now, the Parliament of the Owls.
Oh,
this is like in the future. Like these are comics out now.
That's like after Raptor and stuff, right?
Yeah. This is way later. This is spoilers.
This is after he gets shot, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And he thinks he's
massive spoilers.
Rick Grayson.
I actually just saw. I read that last. When I saw the Talon show up in that page, I was like, "Oh, they're back!"
So excited.
I was so excited. I'm a sucker for this kind of stuff, man. Yeah, so they do show up later.
Yeah.
And that's a massive spoiler, so go and read the new line of Grayson, or Nightwing rather. It's really, really good. I have most of it. And then what I love about him is that no matter what happens to him, he is always embracing change. No matter good, how crazy, no matter how fucked up it might be, he truly, truly rolls with the punches. And I really respect that about him.
There's a lot of Nightwing love going on right now.
Hey, man.
Let's get
his brother.
So you already mentioned it a bit. So like they did an anime movie for
Batman versus Robin.
And I think that's like so accurate to the title of that movie, because I feel like
very true.
This whole Court of the Owls takes a back seat.
It's the backdrop. It's not the front of it.
It's not the main focus of the movie.
It worked in that way. I thought it worked in that way.
I think it was a disservice to the Court of the Owls comic, and I feel that way because the Batman versus Robin movie served more as a sequel to Son of Batman, which was a comic that was published, which spawned the animated movie where we're introduced to Damian.
Right. And
don't get me wrong, I love Damian. As soon as he was introduced in a comic, I was like, I love this kid. He's the best Robin ever. But I think this movie was more of a service to him and more of a service to his story. I think the Talons in that movie were simplified a lot.
They were very simplified. I agree with you on that one. Yeah.
The whole lore of them, I would say, was simplified.
The whole fact that they turned into mush.
Yeah.
If you didn't, like, if they lasted more than like 3 hours or something like that, that made no sense to me.
Mm-hmm.
You had generations to perfect this. This should have been done by now.
And the thing, too, was that Damian became, because you were mentioning in the comic, like, Nightwing was kind of in that role where they were like, we really want this guy on our side, where I feel like their mission in Batman versus Robin was to, like, get Damian and prep him as a new talent.
Yeah.
Which is fine. I mean, I get it for the purpose of the movie.
I like it when they take a new direction in certain things, but I do understand, and I would have liked a more faithful one to the comics.
Yeah.
I thought it was an interesting take on it, but you know, they can still totally make a dope Court of Owls animated movie. I could totally see them just doing, and that should be a 2-parter, honestly, because there's so much of it.
I don't think you could take this event and wrap it up in one animated movie.
It's way too much.
Yeah.
Like they introduced the main Talon, who was the thief.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't even remember his name.
Yeah.
To be honest with you. I don't even think they gave him one.
And that kind of gets to my point with this whole event, which I think we mentioned it before. We love the event like as a story. But I wonder how many characters actually, and I mean, maybe you can speak to it more, but how many more characters, like the actual characters that are introduced, will actually be remembered, years later.
Right.
And I don't think, any of the Talons, maybe like a Talon will stick around. I think even a Talon joined the Birds of the Prey, one that lives on.
Oh.
And, I think it's like the female Talon.
Oh, the one that they kind of like referenced in the animated movie briefly?
They referenced her in the animated. I think she was in the Night of the Owls comic fighting Barbara. I think that's the one. Don't quote me.
Okay.
But
I believe it. I mean,
know
that sounds about right.
Yeah. She joins the Birds of the Prey, but I feel like that isn't enough to make her a memorable character.
Right.
If you know what I mean.
Yeah. It's interesting, though.
Yeah.
One thing I do really like about this, calling back to the systemic racism factor for the Court of Owls, I remember listening to a podcast and also talking to a friend where it's like some of the weird, not laws, but how things are run, especially in St. Louis.
Mm-hmm. You're saying we got the Court of Owls here?
Well, maybe. I do not want to sign up as a Talon, though.
All right.
No, thank you. That would be terrible. But no, I've talked to people who have come in like who are transplants to St. Louis, and they're always surprised that everything shuts down at like 8:30.
What do you mean?
So like everybody will typically come, and then by around 8:30 or 9, they will eat really quickly and then get out. Most other cities, like it kind of continues on until like 12 o'clock or sometimes even later. Like food is usually open. Like if you go to LA or other big cities, it's kind of like that. I heard something that was kind of eerie. It's a callback to old Jim Crow laws, especially if you were a slave. So I guess that would be pre-Jim Crow. And it was past dusk and you were still outside. Yeah. You were immediately taken. And that kind of just stayed as a vestige. So that's why things would close really early. And so it reminded me of that because there's a portion in the Court of Owls where they talk about, if you remember the nursery rhyme, they're behind granite and lime. And they talk about how every time they would build a building and it would have more than 13 was their unlucky number. And so they would always make the 13th floor really like small. And they basically would not make anyone be able to access that floor. And by doing that, it was a way of controlling the bad luck. But they didn't realize by doing that, you're essentially making it easy for one person to get inside. So that's how a Talon could get in and assassinate who they needed to. So it was kind of a weird thing that stuck around even to today in Gotham. So I thought that was just really interesting and scary, honestly. The shadows of the past have a way of pointing to the future sometimes. So,
favorite moments, we talked about the battle in the labyrinth with Bruce.
So much fun.
We talked about Nightwing fighting his grandfather. Is there any other like moments that stuck out to you? The nursery rhyme we talked about.
Yeah.
We enjoyed that. Yes,
we do. Yeah, I really like the part where he's fighting. So Lincoln March is a character we mentioned before. And if it's neither confirmed nor denied, there's a lot of evidence that points to it. Then again, there's evidence that points to the opposite, that he's potentially Thomas Wayne Jr. Yeah. And Bruce confirms it, that his mother was pregnant with a brother. Right. But they had a car crash, which you find out was orchestrated by the Court of Owls. Right. On an intersection that happened in Lincoln and March. And the body was declared dead, the fetus as such. But they don't say what happens. It's really written well because he makes himself a Talon, and he puts on a suit that they were going to give the Talons to, expand their powers and everything like that. And they have this awesome like brother versus brother fight that takes a couple pages. That was fun because it was like seeing a huge owl and a huge bat just get each other. That was fun to watch. I like some of the quieter moments where after everything is said and done, Alfred says to Bruce, he's like, oh, I need to go do some more research and find out more about the Court of Owls. And Alfred kind of turns to him and says, it doesn't matter if genetically that guy is Thomas Wayne Jr. Your brother died 30 years ago in that car accident. The Court of Owls trained him, raised him, tortured him. Thomas Wayne Jr. is dead. Right. No matter what happens. Lincoln March is pretty much all that's left. And I thought that was a really good, mature way of telling him. He's like, it doesn't matter what happens to this. Like, sans like redemption for that character, but it's like you got to face facts, Bruce. Yeah. About these types of things.
And the one thing we know about Bruce, though, is like he has a soft spot when it comes to his family.
Very much so.
And especially his parents. So I can definitely see him being like, if there was any way to save his potential brother, he would definitely try to find it.
He would. And I respect him for that. Yeah, you kind of feel for Alfred too, because you find out
you always feel for Alfred. Alfred's the man. Alfred been telling this man to get out the game for years. Every movie he got that. You talk about 10 movies. He's like 10 movies of Alfred bitching. Like, when are you gonna hang this up?
He's like, dude, I've like stitched you up, I've nursed you back, I've got you when you were like nearly dead. Like, can we stop this, please? And you feel bad for Alfred specifically because you find out his dad dies because of the Court of Owls. Yeah. And dies without telling him, Alfred, I really love you, you're a great son, all these things. Because like the last couple of things he's ever said to Alfred face to face were not very pleasant, it looks like. And when the comic ends, it leaves out that Lincoln March could potentially be his brother. Yeah. Genetically. and so you don't know, you don't know what to think. Just a little side note, I liked they had Kevin Conroy in the animated version voicing his dad. I thought that was a cool touch. In the comic and in the animated movie, they had, it never gets old to see Alfred with a shotgun, just because why the hell not? He apparently was like former British intelligence, SAS or something like that.
He has a show on Stars now.
Does he really?
Yeah, side note.
Really? I didn't know.
I think it's called Pennyworth, his last name, and it's based off like the stories.
I thought that was a show about like werewolves and stuff.
No, that might be another one.
Okay.
But I think it's called Pennyworth.
Okay.
And it's based off Alfred, basically, in the British intelligence.
Okay.
So you get to learn a little bit about his backstory there.
There's also one called like All-Star Batman, where he again brings out a shotgun and is like, and
Not
he's
afraid
like,
of the shotgun.
No, he's like, he's super young and he's just like, yeah, it's time to do this, and he goes about it. There's even one part where he goes like, yo, fucking ho, and he just brings out the shotgun. It was so much fun. Even when he sees a body show up to Wayne Manor from the sewer entrance in the Batcave, he's like, who the hell is there? And he's holding a shotgun. So Alfred loves his shotgun, if anything.
Weapon of choice.
I respect it. I respect it. I really liked this part where it kind of wraps up the whole idea of the Court of Owls, or like the aggressive undertaking that he's doing for Gotham. He's like, I'm not going to set up the bat bases around Gotham. Gotham is not mine. It's not the Court of Owls. It's simply Gotham. Yeah. Which I was like, okay, you actually learned something.
Yes, and
in this comic at least.
Yeah, in this comic. I would say earlier comics, that's kind of an interesting thought, because and this might go off a little bit of the court, but he set up like Batman International, so that's where we get Batwing from, who appears in this, but as Lucas Fox.
Yeah, his son.
Yeah. But I think that's a interesting revelation for Batman.
Yeah. So this is after Batman Inc.
This is after.
Okay.
But, you set up Batman International. You got Batmans everywhere.
It took him to fight his own demons to realize that, which actually, that gives it a lot more depth now that we say that out loud.
He's just not going to set up in his city. But everywhere else, they can have Batman.
Well, I mean, if it's already set up, I'm like, I kind of get it. Okay. Like, it's already set up at this point. Maybe just dial it back down a bit. I don't know.
Yeah, that was always weird anyway. Didn't you feel like Gotham was, I mean, as fucked up as the city is, don't get me wrong, it was always well protected, because who do you have operating out of there? You have Batman, you have the Robins, you have
Gordon,
Birds of Prey, you have the Outsiders. Sometime they'll operate out of there. That's a lot of motherfucking groups. I'm just saying.
Yes, very much so. But this is taking consideration that all of those stories have been developed at this time.
Yeah, that's the weird thing about
comic universes.
The comic universe, and how the New 52, even in the beginning of New 52, what was canon, what wasn't, what stayed. And
there's so many universes, which plays into the dimension kind of gambit that they can throw in Injustice and stuff like that.
And even this new Gotham Knights game.
Yeah.
Even the new Suicide Squad game. But the group's overall long-lasting impressions, I guess that's my question. So do we agree that this was a successful story? Do they live on in Batman lore?
I think it's a successful story.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, in terms of it being good or not.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's very successful.
What we let's think years.
They're not dead. They're not gone. I assure you that.
Years later, are we gonna be oh, the court were more successful than the League of Assassins?
Oh, well, that's interesting. That depends how international the court is, because the League of Assassins is international.
Right.
They might be based in Nanda Parbat if the Arrow universe is continuing on with that. But they're international. They are thousands of years old. Their soldiers are thousands of years old too, potentially. If Raish isn't the only one that's using the Lazarus Pits. The Court of Owls is more endemic to Gotham.
Right.
And I think they're more successful in this home turf.
Yeah.
And they only come out if they need to come out, which is even more creepy.
It's weird, yeah. Especially with all that's transpired in Gotham throughout the years. for them to pick now was very interesting. Well, not now, but in the comics, to pick the time that they did
to come out.
Yeah, it was very interesting.
And with the amount of time that they've been around and the money they have, they're not gone.
Yeah, they're
as
not
you
gone.
mentioned before.
And they're that group that, I guess, if you get tired of the League of Assassins and how other superheroes have used it, like with Arrow, how they've kind of taken League of Assassins and did their story with it. I guess the Court can be this nice little fallback for Batman.
Just for the Bat family.
Yeah. And
kind of a thing.
Maybe even move forward within, they've already kind of like appeared in Gotham. I wouldn't be surprised if they continue Batwoman, if something, happens with that.
Right, because Ruby just quit from that. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Ruby Rose just gave up the role for personal reasons.
Yeah.
She hasn't said why, which, whatever, I respect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's going to be interesting. Another interesting thing, too, and I didn't even catch it, I actually was doing some research on this when we were coming to do this podcast, was that in the new The Batman movie, that in the trailer, you see Bruce Wayne's character receive a card, and it's like a birthday card with an owl on it. And so I guess a casual like myself who didn't really think too much into it.
Didn't catch that at all.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
The beautiful people on the internet who dissect everything. They're kind of like, so now the question is posed, the Riddler and Penguin are in this movie as the villains, but maybe the overarching villain is the Court.
Is the Court using them as pawns?
Yeah.
Okay.
So maybe we're going to have, a trilogy movie where the Court is throwing these villains at Batman, and then the entire time they were the ones orchestrating everything.
Right.
So I think that's interesting, and I think it just shows, the overall impression that the Court had, the story, like the comic had on, the comic industry as a whole, that they want to keep them going and then take them to other forms of media. Because what now? We had an animated movie. Right. We had them appear in TV shows, in a game now. So the logical next step is a movie.
Yeah. And I would rather them do an animated movie and do it well.
Yeah.
Because as much as I love the live action ones, there's so much fantasticness from comic book movies that it's almost easier that way. But I would be down for a really good live action one.
Yeah. I think this movie, from at least what we've seen with the trailers, I think every Batman movie, well, not everyone, not the George Clooney ones, but
the nipples?
Not the Bat nipples. Well, no, that wasn't. Batman movies are.
Lance doesn't like nips. Go ahead.
That is a lie. That is a big lie.
Lies.
No lies. Mighty. What is he doing?
You leave Mighty alone. He hasn't done anything to you. He is a hero.
He
has heart.
1 out of 5. What is he?
I don't know.
1/5? I don't know.
I don't even remember.
He has heart. Yes, he does. To show up to a fight with that haircut.
I used to have that haircut.
Did you?
For a short time.
Our own my tea right here, ladies and gentlemen.
Leave me alone.
I don't know where I was going.
I think you were talking about animated and live action.
Oh, yeah. I think just the movies in general, Batman movies with Batman Begins, I guess, have been generally dark.
Yeah.
So, and even with this movie, it looks dark. It looks like it has that detective feel. So it could be like a thriller in some ways. So I think they can pull it off. I would hate for them to introduce them in the second movie and kind of rush it.
Yeah, because that's the hard part about that. Cause there's so many layers. That's the problem with taking anything from print and putting it to film.
Right.
There's too much. And you realistically have to take cuts. How you cut it is what defines the movie.
Yeah. But I think if they just capture the tone of it, the darkness of it, I think they can be pretty successful.
Yeah.
It won't be 100%. I don't think it'll live up to the comics if you're just solely looking for a accurate adaptation, but I think they can do it well.
Okay. I agree.
Anything else?
This is my own personal thoughts. I really liked the Court of Owls. I really, really did. And I want there to be more. There's also kind of a weird thing that I found in a lot of systemic racist cults across mediums, TV, comic books or whatever, they're always like the really systemic, and they're typically white people who show up at gatherings are always like wearing some sort of bird mask. It's kind of weird.
Oh yeah, the mask.
Yeah, they're always wearing some sort of bird or something like that. I think it's typically a callback to Athenian times, but I don't know. I just found that to be weird. But I've seen that across other things too. It's why people love wearing masks, apparently.
Yeah.
And controlling society.
Mm-hmm.
Ones that say systemically ones. Yeah, I really enjoyed it, and I am interested to see where they take it with Nightwing's story.
Yeah.
Specifically, because that's where it's going right now.
Yeah. And then I think there's also more spoilers.
There's spoilers throughout this podcast.
Yeah. I mean, if you're not catching up on comics, I guess that's your own fault. But
you're not winning at life.
Right, you're not winning. Or if you can think about it, we're guiding them to where to go next.
That's what I think we are.
There's an order to things, you know.
Always a semblance of order.
Don't listen to episode 2 without episode 1. But
I agree.
But there's a new event called the Joker War.
Oh yeah, I heard about that.
And I'm hearing that the Joker has recruited a Lincoln Marsh from Thesis to join his team in this fight against Batman.
That's going to be interesting.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see where they go from there, especially since Lincoln kind of blames Bruce because, you know, whether he's Bruce's real brother or not, he believes it, and he's blaming Bruce for
all his entire life.
For his misfortunes. So I think him teaming up with the Joker, you know, benefits him. But at the same time, we didn't really touch on it. He does betray the court.
Yeah, he does. He eventually kills everybody in one shot. Like, really, I gotta hand it to him. It was really well done. He just poisons all of them in one shot. It's kind of scary. I'm interested to see if they will take Joker and do what they always do with him. Is like, a society will come to him and be like, we can't take the Batman down. Can you help us take the Batman down?
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, sure. But in the process, he totally screws them over. And I'm like, you guys have got to see this by now.
Mm-hmm. I mean, they allude to that many a times in Joker's past.
Right. That's why I'm like, I hope they do something different.
Yeah. I mean, even a callback to an older DC comic, Infinite Crisis, where Alexander Luthor, he recruits like all the villains, but not the Joker. And then like at the end of that comic, Alex is kind of down, he lost or whatever, and the Joker comes up to him. It's like, you didn't allow me to, you know, be on the team.
Right.
Allow me to, you know, play.
You played a potty pooper. Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
And then kills him. So, you know, I think that's it for me, man. I think we touched on a lot.
I think we touched on a lot.
All right, guys, you know, as always, be the change that you want to see in the world.
That's right.
Recycle, have heart, and...
This is what I get for telling you that the recycling bin is right next to the trash can. We went the whole damn tangent on Captain Planet and how much he hates it. My God.
Bye tea, everyone. I'm out. Hey, fan peeps. Thanks for joining. And as always, we appreciate any feedback. You can follow us on our Facebook page, They Need a Hobby, and also at TNAH Pod on Instagram and Twitter.
Hopefully one day we'll find a hobby and maybe even be one of the cool kids. Peace. Hey, someone has to be a hero, all right? Because when they don't...
Are you still talking in the podcast?
Yes, I am. It was like, well, you know, some of us have to be heroes if we don't have hobbies, okay? Jeez.
All right, well, hopefully you'll find one.
Hopefully. And I'm pretty sure Mati found one eventually, all right? You leave him alone. He hasn't done anything to you.